Welcome back to Tread on Sports. Little change of venue as we're back in the ProView Sports studio, and we're joined by Kendall Williams. Kendall, thanks for coming today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it.
And for those of you that don't know Kendall, he was a great point guard here from the Lobos a couple years ago. Two-time Mountain West All-Team, AP All-American Honorable Mention, and at one time Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. Kendall, what are you most proud of your time at UNM?
Well, that was a long time ago, talking about all those accomplishments. And I remember most about UNM really was even more than the victories and obviously even championships that we got within our conference. And making it to the tournament was the relationships I built with teammates, with coaches, and with the fans, and being able to come back into a community like this. I'm from Los Angeles, from California, and coming back here and being able to be on your show and have some fun and just talk sports and talk basketball, really, which was my passion. So that's kind of what I got most out of my experience out of UNM, is just the continued relationships and blessings that I've carried on since I left college.
And we're definitely going to get into some basketball, specifically the Lobos. But you said, your career at UNM was a long time ago. What have you been up to since then?
Well, since then, I've actually immediately after leaving UNM, I trained for the Combine, and I was a experience in itself before I went over to overseas in the European leagues and played in Italy and played in France and Germany and most recently in Puerto Rico and Canada. So I've kind of done a world circuit and I've gotten some great experience over the past. It's been about 3 years now, and I've covered all those places. And I'm still playing currently, and I'm in between looking for an opportunity either in Europe or to play here locally in the D League. So I'm kind of transitioning right now, but it's been a lot of basketball since leaving UNM from basketball. So. And
in that transition, you're already back here in Albuquerque. What brought you here the first time? Was it more about UNM, the basketball program, or was it a connection with the coach that you made?
Well, I think even more than the connections with the coaches I made, the community as a whole, the people that just enjoy basketball here in this state, it's amazing. I'm a passionate basketball person myself, obviously. If you've followed any point in my career, the Lobos' career, obviously, I have a great passion for the game. But the coaches, especially Coach Offord, who's now doing wonders where I'm from in California. So it's just a small world. It's a small basketball world, and that's what I think I've come to appreciate, other relationships. Coach Neal's still up here at doing his thing up at UNM, so it's just good to have those guys to rely on.
You mentioned you got here when Coach Alford was still around. What about Coach Alford did you like?
That's a good question. I guess.
I mean, we were talking a little bit earlier. You were saying you don't like that slow it down style. You like to get up and run. And we saw you make a lot of plays in transition. Was that something that?
I think Coach Offer was a really good coach because he was able to recognize your strengths, and he would tailor your strengths into the team aspect. Obviously, he always preached defense, which my defensive aspect of my game actually became a strength of mine, so he was able to find that ability. So he's also really good at finding abilities that maybe you don't think you had or may not be interested in. He's able to hone those abilities in, so I give him a lot of credit for that. But even more offensively, he was able to, he had his blueprint, quote unquote, which he would always refer. People that were close to Coach Offord or close to the program often knew when he referred to his blueprint what he was talking about in terms of the system. But he also allowed me to play freely because he knew I wanted to get up and down the floor. I wanted to be aggressive, and I think our styles kind of just really kind of worked for a while.
And everyone points to Coach Neal and says that he was a great recruiter and he was able to get a lot of the players in here. Was he your lead recruit? What's your relationship with Coach Neal?
Coach Neal actually was my lead recruit, and he had a great deal of respect for me coming out of high school. I had a previous commitment to UCLA, which didn't work out. And then I reopened my recruitment my senior year, and Coach Neal was actually one of the first people to notice my talents. I had a pretty awful game, a game he went to on the road back home, and he still appreciated my game enough to follow up with my father and myself, and as well as King Jones, who is no longer here. He is currently at Cal Berkeley and coached at Louisville a little bit. People may know of King Jones. Coach Neal, King, and obviously Coach Offer, like we spoke of. It's just it's always been a great staff there. They currently have a great staff, but when I was there, I really appreciated the guys that were there with me because a bunch of just great guys, great basketball minds, and it was a great decision for me coming here.
And we hear a lot of talk that Coach Neal is more of a player's coach. What does that mean, and what kind of difference? And I know you didn't have the year with Alford. You left when he left. How do their styles compare in the way they approach players and deal with discipline?
I think their styles are obviously different. You can see just in the way that teams maybe, I wouldn't even say necessarily compete, but just their day-to-day. I think Coach Offord would usually maintain a little bit more of a environment that was inclusive, where Coach Neal is more open to, allowing, I think, obviously more of people and the prospects of the community. Coach Offord would have a lot more close practices. Obviously now him being at UCLA, it's kind of a different situations in terms of media markets and how they operate. But I think just their personalities and their styles kind of are different. It's hard to just to compare because I only had really 1 year when Coach Neal was at the helm. I liked them together, to be completely honest with you. I think they really fed off each other really well. But Coach Neal has the Lobos now competing to have a chance to win the regular season this year. Coach Offord has the same opportunity. His team is a top 5 team in the nation. So obviously individually they're really good together. But I guess to take a political stance, I liked them together. I enjoyed my time when Coach Offord was head coach and Coach Neal was right there with them. They just like some of my talents may have mixed with some of the other guys. I think some of their skills and talents mixed when they're on the floor together. So it's kind of crazy how that works out sometimes.
And you mentioned that Coach Neal has his team in position for the Mountain West regular season. They're going into a game against Nevada, and the winner will take first place. What have you seen from this team in general this year, and what do you think their ceiling is?
Oh, I think the team has a great ceiling, very high. The talent and potential of this team is still, I think, unknown. And just in terms of some of the youth that the team is starting to bring along in terms of obviously Jalen Harris, I think, is one of the main guys you would have to reference because of his importance in his position and leading the team. I think he could be a determining factor in the rest of this season and obviously in terms of where the program goes. So his development will be important for him individually. But the team's prospect is huge because you have the young talent like him mentioned, and obviously you can't leave out players like Elijah Brown, players like Tim Williams who are now established in the league, established on the team. So I think the more and more veteran leadership is aware of how to bring along these guys and the guys picking up along, it's a two-way street, I think is going to determine, especially this year, because it's right there. The opportunity is there for them to kind of run away with it.
And you mentioned Elijah Brown and Tim Williams. Tim Williams is personally my favorite Lobo. I love watching him play. I think he's a rock down low. It's almost a guaranteed bucket, especially if he can get over his left shoulder. Coach Neal, however, says that Elijah Brown is the best player in the conference. How do you compare those two players?
Well, once again, I'm not hugely into player comparison, especially different positions, which obviously makes it.
It's a tough comparison.
It is a tough comparison, and the college game is interesting in itself, where possessions are a little down. So maybe it would be even more effective. I would like to see Tim be even more aggressive. Maybe not to put words into your mouth. Maybe you would like to even see that as well. I think he could be a 20 and 10 guy consistently. He has that ability, has that skill, but Elijah provides that aggressiveness that maybe has that alpha of the team. So maybe that's where Coach Neal is bringing up the fact that he believes he's the best player. He has the ball in his hands more. He's making decisions. And as I spoke to Eli and been asked of referring to Eli Brown as well, is I like to see him make even more plays in terms of shot taking, shot making, play making, be even more aggressive because he has that ability as well. So having that two-man game with Tim downstairs and Eli bringing the ball up, having that aggression on the perimeter, it's a lethal two-man game. It really is.
And I wouldn't say that I'd like Tim Williams to be more aggressive. I'm sure he could. I'd like him just to have more opportunities. Maybe take 2 shots away from Elijah, and make it concentrated, get the ball down low, and give him the opportunities. But going back a little bit, you mentioned Jalen Williams. He's young. And he's only averaging 20 minutes a game. You averaged 30 your freshman year. His splits aren't quite on your level, but I see you guys as similar players. Do you see any of you and Jalen Harris?
Oh, I mean, I would say just his youth and his energy, his speed, I think is probably comparable to mine at that age or in that situation. Obviously, like you said, I had a more important role just in terms of my minutes and where the team was. So people are going to develop at their own pace. It's just going to be a matter of, when he really catches on, gets into his flow of that college game. But he has all the ability. He reads the floor. I think there are similarities in that aspect. Is that obviously he's an intelligent young individual, so he's going to be able to pick on the plays, which is an important factor of the college game, really is, because that separates good players from really good players, and even great players is always knowing your spots, knowing what's going on, and you can tell that he's in tune, he's locked in, and hopefully you can get the most out of his potential because he has a high ceiling as well.
I think Damian Jefferson is another player that we have to mention, and just that really high ceiling. And sky could be the limit with those two. And I know you had Hugh in the backcourt with you. I really hope that Damian and Jalen can get that kind of relationship and get going. And before we head out today, coming up is a big event known as the Super Bowl. Lots of people watch it. New England and Atlanta. Do you have a prediction? Any thoughts on that?
Oh man, you don't want my opinion. I don't know much about football. I try to pride myself on basketball, but I'm gonna go. I don't even know if they're an underdog, but I'm gonna go with the Falcons. They look pretty good, look pretty potent. So sorry to all the Patriots fans out there, but yeah,
including me.
Oh well, sure. But you kind of look like Matty Ice too. I'm surprised you're not. You look like you'd be back. No diss. I mean, hey, is that off the air? Are we still going?
So then, changing back to basketball, if you don't want to make a Super Bowl pick, a little bit more knowledgeable, who do you think is going to win the Final Four?
Oh.
If you had to pick one team.
One team, the Final Four, I'm going to go with the West Coast team. I'm going to go with Arizona.
Arizona, that's a good pick. I can't disagree with that one. Kendall, thank you again for joining us. This has been Tread on Sports.
This has been Tread on Sports. 60 minutes of highlights from recent Lobo games, plus coaches' comments and player reactions. Tread on Sports is an original production of Dana TV in cooperation with ProView Sports Channel 26.